Good afternoon. Oh, the silence descends. Everybody, thank you and welcome to Glassdoor's Recruit event of 2018. It's a real pleasure to welcome everybody. My name is John Lamphere. I'm proud to say that I'm the Managing Director of our EMEA region. And it's a full house. We've got hundreds of people that have joined us on live stream. And I really want to take the time to say thank you to everybody for coming today. It is a big time asked for everybody to take an afternoon out of their busy days. So it's really fantastic to see everybody here and to know that we've got everybody on our live stream. I'm shortly going to hand you over to Matt Alder, who is going to be our MC for the day. Matt is going to take us through the speakers, presenters, and he's also going to share a little bit of insights into what we see in the industry of recruitment, which proves to be really, really valuable. A few months ago, in June this year, we celebrated our 10th birthday. And it's pretty amazing to think that we're 10 years old, right? It seems not that long ago when Glassdoor started to come into the forefront, especially of how we operate across all of our businesses. But pretty soon after we launched our site 10 years ago, people started contributing content. And they started contributing content in a way which truly amazed us. And that was that there was a real need or a demand for a platform that offered the opportunity for both employees and employers to get a window into what it's like to truly work in a company. As we fast forward to today, we now have 59 million unique users visiting Glassdoor. That makes us one of the biggest job platforms on the planet. And why do people come to Glassdoor? They come to Glassdoor to seek jobs, to seek out opportunities, and to find the best places to work. And essentially, that's why we started this Recruit event. So we started it a year ago because so many job seekers were coming to Glassdoor to find new opportunities. And this is our opportunity to work with all of you employers to help you understand the trends and help you become better at harnessing that power, because everybody knows how important recruitment is. I mean, it is probably one of the most important things that every business needs to do, both for now and for into the future. So through the lineup of speakers we've got and through the content that we've got over the course of the day, we hope to be able to give you a lot more insights and which will help you make decisions in your business that just make it much, much easier to recruit. You also may be aware that we were acquired by Recruit Holdings a couple of months ago. And what this acquisition has meant is it allows us to continue to innovate. It allows us actually to accelerate our journey and to continue on our mission, which is to help people everywhere find a job in a company they love, but also help employers to recruit the best talent to ensure that their business is set up for the future. We're in a pretty unique position. We kind of bridge that gap between employers and job seekers. And because we bridge that gap, we're in a pretty unique position to allow us to be able to share insights from both sides. And speaking of insights, let me introduce Matt. Matt is going to talk to you about insights that we see across the recruitment industry. And he's also going to go through the list of speakers and content that we have today. So I really hope everybody has a truly wonderful event. I'm looking forward to talking to everybody afterwards. And thank you and enjoy. Matt, over to you.
Hi, everyone. How are you all doing? Okay? I've brought my notes so I don't forget anything important. Welcome to today's event. I know we've got some fantastic content in store, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. To very, very quickly introduce myself, I'm Matt, and I have the privilege of being able to be professionally curious. So what I do is I go and find out what's going on in the world of talent acquisition, in the world of technology, and I kind of take that and put that out into the world as consultancy, as work that as writing that I do. I also run a podcast on the future of recruitment that comes out every week, rfpodcast.com. end of advert. The point of today is to listen to what people are saying and learn some interesting new hiring strategies for your business to help you achieve your talent acquisition objectives. So I hope everyone's looking forward to the content that we've got to come. Before I go any further, just a few words about Glassdoor, and thank you very much to Glassdoor for inviting me today and putting the event on. I didn't know this about Glassdoor, just in terms of numbers. So Glassdoor is a very unique job site, for those of you who don't know. It has company benefits and interview reviews submitted by current and former employees. And the numbers, I had no idea they were this big. They now have around 40 million reviews with insights into 800,000 companies around the world. So, without further ado, I'd also like to welcome the people who are watching on the live stream. For those of you in the room, that's what all the little cameras are around there. They're not spying on you. We're actually broadcasting this onto the internet. Apologies that we're a bit late starting. I saw some of the conversation on Twitter with people thinking that the technology is broken, but we were just a little bit took a little while to get everyone into the room. Just a few kind of admin points for the afternoon. So the hashtag, for those of you using Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, insert your social network of choice here, is hashtag GD Recruit. And the Glassdoor Twitter handle is @Glassdoor UK. If you're on the live stream or you're very introverted, a little bit like I am sometimes, you could submit your questions for the Q&A panel using that hashtag or the Glassdoor UK Twitter handle. The bathrooms are out the back there. If you're watching on the live stream, I have no idea where your bathroom is, but I hope you know. And then finally, the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi network is me at Melia, and that's me, M-E, not me, Matt. Me at Melia, and you can just connect that automatically by ticking a box and logging on. So, what have we got coming up for you this afternoon? We're going to kick off with a keynote from Barclays Bank, and we're going to hear how one of the UK's leading banking groups is using data to deliver real innovation in employee experience. There's then a short session on the Glassdoor solution, and after that we've got an expert panel talking about how they've turned recruiting into how they're recruiting for competitive advantage, and some of the challenges they've faced on that journey. After that, we're going to have the Q&A, and if you're in the room, you can ask questions. If you're on the live stream, you can use the hashtag. And then we're going to finish off with a short session from Monica Parker, workplace expert, who's going to look at the psychological drivers for engaging candidates. Once we've finished, we have refreshments and networking kind of around the room, and you can all sort of talk to each other and get to know each other and discuss some of the things that we've talked about today. Now, they asked me to do a short presentation about trends in the talent acquisition industry, both current and future. So I started mapping out some of the things that I could sort of talk to you about today. And this was just my first pass. So talent relationship management, recruitment automation, artificial intelligence, talent analytics, more artificial intelligence, voice interfaces, programmatic advertising, even more artificial intelligence. There's so much noise in this space, isn't there? It's a little bit like a toddler playing a drum kit, which is very noisy, I can tell you from personal experience. So, there are lots and lots of things. You're all being bombarded with technologies and jargons and new ways of doing talent acquisition. So I thought in the short time that I've got available, we talk about some of the fundamentals, some of the things that, when I'm consulting, I really work through with people to see what underpins the strategy they have for hiring. And really the technology and everything that's going on sort of, sits around the top of that. So ultimately, this is what we're all doing. We're all trying to find the right people. And And by the right people, we mean, candidates who are informed about the job offer or the career offer that you have for them, who are informed and also who've been persuaded that they want to work for your organization. So a few different things going on there, and all of you will know that this is no easy task. There's lots of noise if you're a talent acquisition professional, but if you're a job seeker or a candidate in a high demand area, the noise is deafening. We get most of our information through our mobiles these days. And with talent acquisition, we're competing, with everything else that's going on in the world, all the other information that's out there. So it's not just about finding the right people. It's about making sure that they can actually see, hear, feel your message. And that to me is the real challenge. And the way to do that is all about standing out. And I'm sure all of you, if I asked you individually and one-on-one, you could tell me all the reasons why your company or your job opportunity stands out. And I think one of the greatest things about recruiters is you're all professional persuaders. And talking to people in that one-on-one environment, I'm sure you'd be very enthusiastic about why the right person should join your company. But how do we do that at scale? How do we cut through all the noise that's out there? And also, once you've done that, once you've kind of landed your message, you've found the right person, they're listening to you, how do you persuade them that your organization is the organization that they should join? And really, this comes down to the fundamental aspect of storytelling. So when we tell stories to each other, the brain fires off something called oxytocin, which is kind of an emotional chemical that, if you hear someone's story, you build an emotional connection with that person. So how can we do this in talent acquisition? How can we tell stories that connect with people? And that's really the question that I want to kind of give you to think about as we go through all the presentations and discussions this afternoon, because fundamentally they're all about telling stories, whether that's the story of the employee experience or the candidate journey or whatever that might be. And the best stories have a few things in common. They're relatable, so people can understand them. They're authentic. And they engage people emotionally. And to sort of give you to leave you with something on this, you're not always in charge of that story. So very often people will be looking at the stories from your employees or your former employees and how they describe the workplace that you work in. So let's think this afternoon about storytelling and just think about that as we go through the presentations, and how could you perhaps do that, more effectively within your organization, but also harnessing your employees' stories to do that. Okay, that's all from me in terms of trends. I'm now going to hand over to Sarah Jane Walker, who is the Global HR Director at Barclays Bank. Sarah's session is going to give us a unique insight into the recruiting challenges they face as a global financial institution, how they've innovated over time, and how they've tapped into their existing employee base to hone their talent attraction strategy. So, Sarah, welcome to the stage.
It's good. I can hang on to it if I get a bit dizzy. No dramas. Hi. I'm so excited to be here and be your keynote today, and really hoping that you can kind of follow the northeastern accent, because I do tend to talk at speed. So I've got some of my team with me today, and I've given them some hand signals. This means stop with the Geordie, because I've lost the train. So I will try and slow down a little bit. But I'm very passionate and very excited to talk about our story with Glassdoor so far. So I'm hoping over the next 20, 25 minutes you will have some really good insights to take away with you. So our friends at Glassdoor said, SJ, can you start the, gosh, I keep looking at that picture. This is a new work picture for me, which actually, it makes me look like I'm running for president or something. That's not, it's a good picture, but it's a bit serious. So a little bit about me before I start with the presentation. So I have got just over 25 years recruitment experience. Started with the Deco Group and with their Office Angels High Street brand when I was 10 years old. Wasn't really. But I was actually their youngest ever branch manager at 23, and I just remember, you know, people say you fall into recruitment, and I definitely did that. Kind of started off as a bilingual PA and fell into recruitment somehow. But people also say that if you find a job that when you wake up on a morning it feels like it's not a job because you enjoy it, that's what I found with recruitment and still find it. So I did 14 glorious years with Office Angels. I loved every minute of it. Went from kind of temps consultant to branch manager, senior manager, looked after a whole bunch of branches in the Northeast, which is where I'm from, and never wanted to leave. And you'll know, as recruiters, in 14 years, I never applied for another job because I loved it so much. So how did I end up at Barclays? Well, they were my client, and I'm sure as happened with many of you before, they headhunted me, and they said, you know, look, come and work for Barclays. It's a great opportunity. And I said, well, you know, that all sounds good, but I love where I am. The package was good, and I kind of thought about it for about 3 weeks, but there was one hook that they had for me, which was you can be a dynamic worker. So, wow. This was kind of 9 years ago. Dynamic working wasn't huge then, but I thought, well, that sounds good. What does it mean? Well, you can work from home, travel between home and London, and when Daisy, so my gorgeous daughter who was 18 months at the time, when Daisy starts school, you can do the school run, and that was it, sold. Because I knew that the kind of rigid 9 to 5 was just not going to work with my life. So off I went over to Barclays, started, you know, that big transition from high street to in-house, which I'm sure many of you have made, and it was pretty tough at first, kind of learning the ropes and going from a big fish in a little pond to a tiny fish in a huge pond, and started off looking after the recruitment for the call centres, became a head of resourcing, went and had a bit of a dalliance in HR transformation, which was awesome actually, being on that side of the fence. And then my most recent role, which I've actually been in for 4 years as the, not running for president, but Global HR Director for Customer Experience, which sounds very grand, and it is an awesome job. So what it means is that we look at the experience of candidates, internal and external, hiring managers, right from that point of attraction and marketing, so why do people want to work for Barclays, all the way through to the end of the life cycle when people leave us and then go off and join our alumni program. So the work that is involved in all of that experience, it's important that we have insights, that it can be measured so that we can continuously improve and also decide where we direct our strategic focus. So what initiatives shall we go for? And the work that we've done with Glassdoor has really, really helped with that. So that's about me. Let me quickly tell you some more about Barclays that you hopefully don't know because I've pulled some awesome visuals here for you. So we are a transatlantic consumer and corporate and international bank, and we are based, our 2 main anchors are London and New York, but we do have a global reach. We are so proud to say that we've been in existence for over 325 years, and you'll see the first archive picture there from the 1690s. We've traded in many different names since then. But the next picture is Hilda Harding, who was our first ever female branch manager. And apparently on Hilda's first day, there was a huge tea party with cocktails. All of her customers came along to celebrate her coming into post, which is awesome. And then this is my favourite, so the Barclaycard suit. So this is what our staff had to wear. Barclaycard, obviously one of our great brands that's been with us since 1966, and that's in the 70s. And then bringing it back to infographic land, this is just to explain to you the structure of Barclays now. So earlier this year, with the new kind of structural reform regulations that came in, we separated our bank so that we had 2 key businesses. So we have Barclays UK, which is for our kind of personal wealth and business banking customers. We have 24 million customers in that side of the business. And then we have Barclays International, which is more the kind of larger corporate wholesale and investment side of the bank. And kind of underpinning all of that and supporting the two businesses is what we call Barclays Execution Services, which is BX. So that's the real sort of engine room where you've got the centres of excellence, you have HR, you have tech, and that's how we work as an organisation. We have just over 80,000 employees at the moment. And the resourcing model that we have, it's a semi-outsourced model. So we have two key RPOs that we work with. They are completely integrated into our business. So on the face of it, internal colleagues, hiring managers, it doesn't matter to them if somebody's employed by one of our RPOs or Barclays, it's all one team. And it works really, really well. And again, insights and feedback is so important in the work that we do. So let me tell you about our journey with Glassdoor, because I was with Nellie and John at lunch and just thinking about how quickly the last 3 years have gone, but also that they had 2 people in their London office when we first met them, and they've just done, so well, which is awesome. But December 2015, a lovely colleague said to me, SJ, have you seen Glassdoor? I said, no, Kate, I don't think I have. And I was thinking, should I have seen it? And I said, what is it? She said, well, basically, it's like the TripAdvisor for careers. So I love TripAdvisor. But I'm one of those terrible people that uses it for everything but never spends the time to put the reviews on, which I really should do more of. So I said, wow. She said, go and have a look at it. She said, honestly, there's actually quite a lot of feedback that people have put on there already for Barclays. So what I can only describe in the next 10 minutes was half complete terror and fear and then half complete excitement. Because as I opened the page, and bearing in mind that my team look after all of the external career sites that we have for Barclays, so making sure that all the visuals are perfect, that the language runs through, and everything is correct for people who want to work for Barclays. So this page had been generated because 15,000 people had already put their views on around Barclays. And it's super simple. Everything's rated out of 5. So we've got categories in there such as how would you rate your CEO? What's it like to work for Barclays? What's the recruitment process like? And then salaries. I learned more in 10 minutes on Glassdoor about Barclays salaries than I have in 9 years in HR. So completely transparent, completely anonymous, but awesome. And obviously there was people who'd written reviews, some of them, really positive. There were a few negatives in there as well. So we contacted Glassdoor and I said, look, what can we do? We need to get hold of this site and make it more kind of Barclays. And also I want to use it for job applicants, because the thing that filled me with the most terror is as I was looking at the page, another bank had their job ads right in the middle of our page because the algorithms had kind of helped to do that. And I found out later that 40% of the people who were visiting our site were then going on and applying to this other bank. Terrifying. So we took control. We had a wonderful meeting with Ravi, who's around here somewhere, who was our first kind of account manager. And we put the Barclays visuals in, we took control, and we started to post jobs. And one of the other really important things that it gave us the access to do was to put interventions on there. So going back to TripAdvisor, if you're looking to stay in a hotel and you start reading all of the reviews, and if the hotel manager has put an intervention on there, and whether it's kind of thank you for your kind words or really sorry this happened, we'll try and make it up to you. As a customer, you are 70% more likely to stay at that hotel because they've made that intervention. So we wanted to have the power to do that. And kind of traditionally for banks, having that kind of open feedback forum is quite terrifying because we're highly regulated and we've got to make sure we've got processes and systems in place that we can get back and address all the feedback that comes in. But we wanted to be bold and harness social media and use it for all of the positive things that we can use it for. And I'm going to tell you in a second how we use the rest of the feedback to initiate some of the strategic objectives that we go for. But let's have a look at these stats because they're just fantastic. So there's a little picture of what our Barclays page looks like there in the top. But almost 6 million page views since we set up in 2016. So it is one of the most popular channels that we use in terms of people learning about Barclays and want to work for us and then going on and applying. So 1.6 million job clicks, which is awesome, but this is probably the most impressive stat. So we post our jobs on Glassdoor and we post on other sites as well. It's the most successful site in that when people read the jobs and click on to apply, 80% of them then complete the application through that method, which is awesome. I mean, it's higher than some of our internal sites. And in the last 6 months, we've had 51% growth in views. So more and more and more people are using Glassdoor. I haven't put any of the US stats up because obviously we recruit through Glassdoor for New York as well. But the UK ones for today, just really, really impressive. And, the growth has been exponential. So what do we do with the feedback? So one of the things that we do with the feedback, this might sound crazy, but as a resourcing team, we also look after the exit interviews for Barclays. It's really important that we understand why people leave us, because then we can turn it on its head, we can do something about it, and hopefully use those insights to help us recruit people in the future. So we also have anonymous surveys that go out when people leave us. These are for voluntary leavers, and we use a third party, so people are a bit more compelled to complete the surveys. But we ask them, why did you leave? It's sent to them just after they've resigned, so some of them are actually still working in our premises when they get the surveys. But we use so much of that insight to help direct, like I said, our strategic kind of initiatives after that. And just 2 of them that I'm going to choose today to take you through are dynamic working and career development. So these are awesome. These are awesome. These are word clouds that the Glassdoor report pulls up for us. So all of the different pieces of feedback that go onto our Glassdoor page, these are the most common words that people use, and we can split them into when they're down in a positive sense and then a negative sense as well. So you see work-life balance really, really features, flexible working, working hours, but it's also in the negatives. And although the reviews that come back in are anonymous, we can see if people have added the locations in. We can see which part of the country that this is coming from. So we can't find the people, and we wouldn't want to find the people, but we can then develop initiatives that are centered around certain locations so that we can target that and try and do something about it. So from our exit surveys, I thought you might be interested to see the top things that people value about Barclays. And I've split them into male and female because they're slightly different. And then the reasons for leaving as well. So this is a combination of what we see in the exit surveys and exactly what we see in Glassdoor as well. So there's a direct correlation between those 2 sets of data, which is super important for us to have. So work-life balance is the thing that people value most about Barclays, their role and then the culture. And you all know, kind of over the years, the banking industry has really suffered reputationally wise. I can confidently tell you that Barclays do so much work about strengthening our culture, making sure that it's a safe place for people to work. They feel that they've got a voice. They feel that they're working with integrity, with respect for our customers as well. So culture is something that we work a lot on in Barclays to make sure that it comes from the top and it absolutely resonates all the way down the chain. Reasons for leaving. So you can see here, actually this slide hasn't been changed. So compensation is actually the #1 reason why males leave. And it's the 3rd reason why females leave. And we see this a lot. We see a lot of trends where male and female reasons and rationale is slightly different. We've got lots of insights through the internal mobility work that we do and the redeployment work that we do that shows that females are much less likely to take up support and much less likely to go on and apply for jobs. But if we approach females and say, we found a job that we think you'd be really good at, then the conversion rate for females going on and applying for the jobs is much higher than males. So all of this feedback resonates with insights that we've seen as well. But dynamic working, flexible working, it's the reason I work for Barclays. We are working so hard to make sure that more and more colleagues get the opportunity and understand that this is the cultural way that we work in Barclays. So I travel to London once every 2 weeks. The rest of the time I'm at home. I can work in local branches if I want to. I have a team of 20 people. Probably 80% of them are dynamic workers as well. We have video conferences. We have, lots of ways to connect. It shouldn't matter where you work. It's the output of what you do that matters. And Barclays is getting better and better at this. And these are stats that are from our employee opinion surveys. So you can see there, 59% of our colleagues work dynamically now, and we have 80,000 people. 87% of colleagues feel that they can talk openly to their line manager about working dynamically. And this is something that's been achieved through setting that culture where it is the norm that we can do that. 79% feel a strong sense of belonging. So we can see from our employee opinion surveys, the people who work dynamically are the people that are most engaged as well. And staff working dynamically, 87% would recommend Barclays as a good place to work. And this is not just about parents who maybe want to get more time with their children. This is about millennials who have got hobbies or other interests outside of work that want to be able to balance with their work life. It's about people who might want to study. I have got an awesome boss. She's very senior MD in Barclays. She's a mum of 2, and my job is super busy, but I also do a lot of things out of work. I run a netball team. Anthony Netball isn't here, but it's my big passion. And I also do lots of volunteering with the elderly in the area. So elderly people who don't have family or friends around have lots of scones. So we look after them and do shopping and just nice things so that they don't feel as isolated. So she allows me to compress my fortnight from 10 days into 9. So every other Friday is filled with tea, scones and lots of netball spreadsheets. But that makes me feel much more balanced and happy as an individual, and I'm better at my job because of that, because I feel respected and valued by Barclays. So let me just show you a little bit more. We use dynamic working as part of our attraction strategy. And to Matt's point earlier, this is not just about going out with empty words, that dynamic working is something that we support in Barclays. We have stories on our internal sites, on our social media from colleagues. So there's over 100 colleague stories on our job sites, internally and externally, which are rotated all the time to try and inspire colleagues, to make them feel confident that actually this does happen and it can work for me as well. So that's just some of the social channels that we use. And some people post about working dynamically all the time on their own social media as well, and that again helps us to have that kind of real, that real strong sort of message out there in the market, friends and family as well, that this is something that Barclays do. So the second area strategically that we focus on because of the likes of the feedback that we get from Glassdoor is all around career development. So if you look in the top corner there, that's another one of these marks out of 5 that Glassdoor can give us on their insights. And we're always compared against other financial institutions. So we have Lloyds and HSBC up there. So this is how well we do career development in Barclays. Now, Marks and Spencers have been added into the mix there, and I'm pleased to say that we're the highest score out of all of those organisations at 3.7 out of 5. So again, we can get this awesome data and set of insights from Glassdoor that help us to almost measure whether our messages are working out there in the market as well. So you can see there internal mobility also features in the word clouds, and we can see all of the ratings from the data that we pull from Glassdoor to again just show that we are making progress, it is making a difference, and we can prove that not just by what we see internally, but what we're seeing from our external insights as well. So the internal mobility within Barclays has gone from the early 30s right up to 40%. There's more work to do, but 40% is pretty awesome in terms of internal mobility for the size of the organisation that we have. These are just some examples of marketing campaigns that we've done, and the career mobility site that my team set up actually within Barclays is the most popular intranet site in the entire organisation. We had 147,000 views in the first 3 months of it going live. And it's continuous. Message from leaders, internal mobility is so important. Making things transparent, making it easy to access. We decommissioned our internal mobility policy because the rule was that you had to tell your line manager if you were applying for a job within Barclays. We've taken that away because we don't want people to feel nervous or stifled about that. So it's so much easier to find a mentor, to find out more about, kind of other opportunities in the bank. And all of this is being driven by the insights that we've seen from people leaving us or leaving comments on Glassdoor. So hopefully I'm on time. I haven't talked too much. I think there are some tweets that might come through later with some questions, but I'm around for networking later, and I really hope that that you've learned something and this has been useful for you today. But all I can say is feedback is definitely a gift, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
much to SJ for such a great session there, and I'm really interested to see how you're using that content to actually, craft the stories that you're telling. Next up, we're going to dive into the Glassdoor solution and learn how you can benefit from the Glassdoor platform. So I'd like to welcome Leah Albers from Glassdoor onto the stage. Leah spends her time at Glassdoor working with clients to ensure they are maximizing the platform to their recruitment advantage. And she's going to share what sets Glassdoor's solution apart and the 3 key pillars that are going to enable you to attract quality candidates, tell your brand story, and drive awareness. So welcome to the stage, Leah.
Thank you. Hi. My name is Leah Albers, and I'm part of the customer success team here at Glassdoor. And our job is to work with our partners to make sure they meet their objectives using our platform. So I'm all about making the most of Glassdoor. So what are our clients' goals? Ultimately, it always comes down to hiring, getting the best people through the door. For some of my clients, it's about increasing awareness of their employer brand. For others, it's about supporting specific hiring initiatives, like improving the diversity of their workforce or attracting more software engineers. And more, it's about getting job ads in front of the right candidates. And why our candidates? Because Glassdoor is different. We see nearly 6 million visits a month in the UK. And the #1 reason those people give for visiting Glassdoor is to search for a new job. And why do they come here? Because Glassdoor is relevant throughout the entire candidate journey. The best, most discerning candidates do extensive research both before and after they apply for roles. And those are the type of people you want to hire. Glassdoor has all of the insights they need to make the right decisions for them, whether they're searching for open roles, applying for jobs, preparing for an interview, or reading your company reviews to better understand your company and culture. It's not surprising, then, that Glassdoor's UK audience is a little different from what you might find on a typical job site. 9 in 10 UK Glassdoor users have a university degree, and 1 in 4 of them also has additional postgraduate qualifications. 88% of them tell us they're either searching for a new job or are open to a new opportunity. Importantly, though, Glassdoor candidates are well informed. They're careful about where they work, and rightfully so. They're highly engaged, well-researched, and submit applications thoughtfully for roles that they've determined are a good fit based on their research. They have the right expectations and apply with their eyes wide open. And that means they're more likely to be hired and more likely to stay. So how can you take advantage of our pool of quality-informed candidates? If you're in our audience today, you probably have a rough understanding of how Glassdoor works. You might know your rating and review highlights, but you might not know how to make it work for your business to help meet your hiring goals. Well, Glassdoor's hiring solution has 3 pillars that work together to help you attract quality candidates, tell your brand story, and drive awareness. Starting with job ads. Job ads boost the visibility of your open roles, so your roles show up more frequently to the most relevant candidates. We put your job ads in front of people based on their behavior on site to create an experience that is most specific to their qualifications and their interests. And as a result, sponsored job ads typically see 13 times more clicks and 11 times more apply starts than ordinary job ads. And that means more qualified candidates for you in far less time. Our enhanced profile helps you tell your company story and drive visibility to your brand on our site. You're telling your story and differentiating yourself as an employer to people who are already researching your company, and you're getting yourself in front of those who aren't. With an enhanced profile, you can amplify your brand with photos and video, centralize your open positions on our Jobs tab, eliminate competitor ads, Create a Why Work For Us section with customizable tabs, connect your social media accounts, and feature a review of your choice. And for a lot of our clients, the most value of our enhanced profile is access to detailed analytics about your company in our Employer Center. As Barclays has shown us, these analytics deliver valuable insights that you can use to refine your employer value proposition and optimize your hiring strategy. Finally, while our enhanced profile is a great way to promote your employer brand to candidates who may already be searching for you, our display product is a great option to actively target passive candidates who may not be considering you, so you can ensure you're on their shortlist. It's going on the offense. Glassdoor job seekers who see a company's brand more than 10 times are 5 times more likely to apply than those who saw it once. So it's a great tool to have in your arsenal. Display advertising also allows you to target any high-priority audiences you're looking to hire. You can target by gender, location, and occupation, amongst other targeting facets, to ensure your brand is visible to the right candidates and help drive specific hiring initiatives. Used together, these 3 pillars, job ads, employer branding, and display advertising, help meet your hiring goals, whatever they may be, whatever your industry, and whatever your company size. I know some of you in the audience today come from small businesses, and there's a perception that Glassdoor is only an enterprise tool for large companies with hundreds of open roles. And it is, but it's not just that. Our tracking studies show that in the UK, Glassdoor is just as important for small businesses. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Let's take Barclays as an example. It's a 325-year-old bank, a household name. There's probably a branch on your high street. If you see a job listing for Barclays, you already know exactly who they are and what they do. You might not know what it's like to work there or what roles are open, that's what Glassdoor is for, but you at least have some basic knowledge. Now, if you're a small company with, say, 50 employees, there's a good chance your ideal candidates have never even heard of you. The combination of your Glassdoor enhanced profile and sponsored job ads allows you to compete head-to-head with the biggest players in your sector and capture the interests and applications of discerning candidates who may have not considered working for your company. Now they can read about what you do, why you're a great place to work, and see the unvarnished ratings of the people who know it best. And to make things easier, this year we launched Glassdoor Essentials, a new product developed exclusively for small businesses. Essentials combines the features of the enhanced profiles with the ability to sponsor open roles, starting from just £545 a month. We've also been innovating for major employers too, delivering huge improvements to the technology that underpins our jobs marketplace to help attract quality candidates at scale in the most cost-effective way possible. So whether you're a small business or a large one, if you have any questions about Glassdoor or how to make the most of it for your company, head over to our demo zone once our speaker program has wrapped up. Our team will be on hand to demonstrate our product and answer any questions you may have. So if you've always wanted to see the enhanced features of your company profile, or dig into the data analytics, or learn about how you can boost the number of applications you receive for each open role, now's a great time to do it. Thank you so much for your attention today. I hope that what I've talked about has been useful to you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of our speaker program. And please don't hesitate to find me or any other member of our team if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a great presentation and some really great insight into what Glassdoor can do. OK, we're ready for our awesome panel, and you can see their pictures up on the screen. Just a reminder to those of you who are watching on the live stream, thank you very much for everyone who's tweeting in. Hashtag GD Recruit if you want to contribute any questions. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Lauren Wright, the Sales Director of Glassdoor EMEA, to the stage to chair the panel.
Thank you, Matt. I'm actually going to sit down. It's a little easier these days. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. And not forgetting all of you on the live panel, thanks for joining us. My name is Lauren Wright. I'm a sales director at Glassdoor for EMEA. I'm based here in London for the past 4 years. I've actually been at Glassdoor 7 years, so it sometimes feels like 70. But we are actually embarking on an amazing year at Glassdoor as we continue our expansion across Europe and across global markets. So it's a particularly exciting year for us. I'm very excited about our expert panel today, who are going to tell us a little bit about recruiting, how to hire better and faster. And each of our panelists has a very different perspective, so should be a great conversation. And you should be able to go away with some key takeaways that we hope you'll bring back to your own businesses and put into practice. So without further ado, don't want to waste any more time. I'd like to bring up our panelists, starting with Dominic Sumners. He's Managing Director for Online Media Experts. Come on up, Dom. And Jane Fitzmaurice from AutoTrader, who is Employer Brand Manager. Welcome, Jane. And last but not least, we have Monica Parker, who is a workplace behavior expert. She's founder of Hatch Analytics and a Huffington Post contributor. Welcome. So I'll start by handing it off to you, Dom, and maybe you can just give us a quick introduction, if you will.
Okay, very quickly. My name's Dom Sumners. I'm the MD and founder of OME. We essentially are the UK's leading digital recruitment ad agency. We advise organisations, including some of the UK's biggest employers and recruiters, on how to do candidate attraction, talent engagement, candidate journey, candidate experience, and all the elements around that. We've used Glassdoor in lots of different ways for lots of different clients, some very successfully, a few unsuccessfully, which I'm happy to talk about both sides and that side, and I'm happy to talk and meet you all today.
Hi everyone, I'm Jane Fitzmaurice. I'm from AutoTrader. I'm the employer brand manager, but I'm also responsible for technology recruitment as well. So for those of you that still think we're a magazine, we're not. And we went fully digital in 2013. We're a business of around about 850 people. Our headquarters are in Manchester, and we have a smaller office in London and remote workers around the UK. So in terms of hiring, we are largely in the digital space, so we're recruiting digital account managers, developers, data scientists, data analysts. Anybody hiring in that space will know just how competitive it is. So hopefully I can be of some use today and share a little bit of insight about how we do things at AutoTrader.
My name's Monica. Monica Parker. I'm founder of a company called Hatch, and Hatch is a human analytics and change consultancy, and we specialize in the future of work. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my background when I present later, but I think the perspective I bring to this is that we consult with global blue chip companies all the time about how to craft successful cultures and compelling cultures, and so I have seen the good, bad, and the ugly of recruiting strategies that go well and not so well.
Great. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, we just heard from Leah about the Glassdoor solution, so I thought we would start there. And Jade, of course, you have, being a client of ours, a lot of experience. One of the things that we know about candidates from Glassdoor is that they tend to be better quality candidates. So I'm curious to know kind of what your experience has been as a client of Glassdoor. Have you seen that kind of come through the funnel, and in what form?
Absolutely. So Glassdoor candidates tend to be very well informed. Glassdoor is referenced heavily at all different parts of the recruitment experience, and probably around about 90% of candidates are talking about Glassdoor. And they'll come to interviews armed with heaps of information. Sometimes you kind of forget that you've put certain things out there. They'll pull real nuggets of information, and it's incredibly helpful for them to kind of really understand who we are as a business and use that information to decide whether or not they want to continue through the assessment process.
Yeah, great. And Dom, for the clients of yours that work with us and it's worked out well, I'm curious, from your viewpoint, you obviously work with a diverse mix.
Yeah, I think Glassdoor is interesting in that it follows many other sort of media that have organically grown from below, in that candidates were ahead of clients, okay? Candidates were using it while clients were still burying their heads in the sand. And I think what we saw on the journey of clients was, one, either never heard of it, we'd all never heard of it 5 years ago, to then having heard about it, then not liking it because people said mean things about them on Glassdoor, then knowing they had to engage, and then caught up with the client, because candidates love it. Candidates use it, and they're the same. All our clients say they come to interviews with the same questions, and now we're at the point where clients want to use for best practice and some of the things you've talked about today. But I always think clients need to catch up with candidates who this is a fantastic tool for.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, Monica, if you think this trend where candidates are using platforms like Glassdoor to get more information, if you think this trend is going to continue in the industry.
Absolutely. There's a study that comes out every year. It's called the Edelman Trust Index. And what we've found is that there's a trust crisis globally. And we trust now not the people above us, not the people that we report to, but we trust the people like ourselves. And so this being able to hear feedback from someone that we identify as a future colleague or someone that feels like us, we're going to trust that more than a recruiter, frankly, saying, no, we're a great place to work. So I think that this autonomy for people to be able to find out for themselves about an organization is just going to become more and more important.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about job search, because I know a lot of people know Glassdoor is where candidates go to research companies, but it's also a place, in fact, the #1 reason candidates come to Glassdoor is to search for jobs, and we're particularly proud of our job search. Dom, I'm curious, you've worked with clients on our job search, and what is the differentiation you see from other platforms?
I think the massive advantage you have over every other platform is that there are people who are on the site a long time. Okay, I should know, but the average is something like 2 minutes 40 seconds or something like that.
A little longer, but
yeah. Okay, there you go. Whereas we all know that the average time someone spends on a job board or Indeed, both of which do fantastic jobs, is like a nanosecond. It's click, click, go. Okay, so there you go. That's your big advantage. The biggest challenge to you is therefore turning that into ROI for people like us who want to see analytics saying cost per application, cost per click. I think the progress you've made over the last year, and I'm going to throw it back to you in a second about why you think how you think you've done that, has been really just converting some of that. I hate the term passive because I'm more like an engaged audience, but who aren't necessarily, they're there to research, not to apply. But you've obviously managed to get more applications via, I presume via your analytics have told you that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the moderator here, but I'll tell you. But the very fact that candidates are going to Glassdoor means that they're looking for the best fit for them. So it's very natural that candidates come to Glassdoor to look for jobs, and not surprising to us that it's the #1 reason they do come to Glassdoor. Let's switch gears a little bit to the analytics, because I know, Jane, you are sort of a power user of Glassdoor and use the analytics to kind of help understand the candidate journey. Tell us a little more about how you do that.
So I have a fantastic technical account manager called Paddy, and we have monthly calls, and we look at the different products that we have and look at what's working for us. So, for example, we'll look at the views that we're receiving on our page. We'll look at how we're getting on, via our competitors, what jobs aren't performing so well, and also just really kind of simple tips and, in ways that we can either directly impact or influence candidates. So an example of that would be a number of months ago, we weren't utilising the company updates as much as we should do. So Paddy's suggestion in that space was, post more company updates, because every time you do that, an email is sent to you, the followers of that page. And a really nice kind of story as a result of that was that we actually made a hire because of that. I'm sure a lot of you will have had a very busy summer recruiting graduates. And we found out from a recent hire that it was because of a company update landing in his inbox that he actually applied for a role and actually ended up joining us. So sometimes, it can be difficult to make time to, look at all the different channels that you kind of work on in order to attract candidates. But sometimes it can be the very simple things that you can do in order to, like I say, impact or influence a hire. sometimes it's not as simple as that, and it's a longer term plan. If we think about, say for example, if we have a lot of data scientists visiting our company profile, we need to think about the information that they're being met with when they come to see us. So we've really taken time to understand what it is that our candidates are interested in, and then try to serve them with that content when they come and join us. So there's many benefits from that, and in addition to that, the information that you can take outside of the people team as well. Speaking to the leadership team about the value of this product. So yeah, it's incredibly helpful. And like I say, the support that I receive from the account team is fantastic.
That's very good to hear. But this, I think, the power of having a job together with information on a company and reviews is sort of the right 1-2 punch. And Monica, I'm curious of what what your thoughts are on the industry, where we now are moving to seeing job seekers kind of act like consumers in a way.
I think it's a double-edged sword. So for the job seeker, it's certainly a level of empowerment that they probably haven't had before, but it's also a level of transparency that perhaps organizations also haven't had to deal with. Now we know that bad news travels faster than good, and so sometimes when I reference to a client, Glassdoor, they say, oh, that's just the unhappy people. But the fact is, those are the ones that are going to tell their friends to work there or not. And so I think that the challenge now is to not just bury people in data, but to start actually giving them insight so that they can convert that to happier people who are compelled to review you on the site.
Monica, one of the things we have to talk to clients about, and I think Glassdoor has impacted this, is to be a bit more honest, human, concise, interactive on their general corporate comms, okay? And to stop talking about, $15 billion thing in 12 countries, the stuff that candidates don't want to know about, but to get to it. So I assume that's affected everything, is it?
Absolutely. There's a term, radical transparency. It came out, it was something that people started using about 15 years ago, specifically in reference to sustainability reporting. And we generally, by and large, recommend to every one of our clients that they engage with radical transparency. People know what's going on. The gossip will get out. So just be honest, and be honest internally as well, so that you can start to confront it and move forward. But yeah, people don't want to hear. I thought Matt's comment about a story was great, but it's got to be authentic. It can't be a sales pitch.
Yeah. Speaking of radical, the past 10 years, we've seen major shifts in the recruitment industry. I'm curious, beyond transparency, what else are kind of the biggest shifts you're seeing across the industry?
I think it's gone more user candidate focus, isn't it? They are not just receiving your jobs and choosing whether to apply. They are much more informed, can do things quicker, can absolutely criticise you or just not engage with the process. And I think that's fantastic. Someone said to me, "Oh, it's really." It's so confusing for a candidate now. It's so awkward, difficult. It's never been as easy to apply. And I think, yes, clearly there are downsides to an infinite choice and the amount of choice you guys give, but I think it's so user candidate centric, and that can only be a good thing. And I think that's been the big thing I've seen.
Yeah, we when we started Glassdoor, it was actually, we called it kind of a power to the people company. So I'm curious, Monica, is that kind of what you've seen too, is this shift of power?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said before, I think that level of empowerment is great. You have to be able to embrace it as an employer. What I see also a big shift, and I'll talk about it in a few minutes, is people being much more honest about being cause-driven. And trying to link your cause of your organization with what drives people internally. I think people are much more honest now of saying, well, yeah, the paycheck's good, but I want it to mean something. And I think that used to be something that maybe you talked about after you were in a job for a while, whereas now I think people are willing to talk about it right up front.
Jane, do you do all your reviews yourself? As in your team answer all the reviews? Do you pick and choose?
We do, and my colleague Kesh, who's sat over there as well, is actively involved in responding to the reviews too. And, when we went into, a partnership with Glassdoor, we were very aware of, the fact that, not every review was going to be great. And, we wanted to be authentic and honest and, open about who we are as a business. So whenever we get a review through that maybe isn't as positive as some of the other ones, we look at the content of that, and depending on what it is that's kind of called out in that, and if it relates to a particular business area, we will actually ask the director of that particular area of the business to respond to that person directly. So what we're not being is defensive. We understand that everybody has an experience, and it's one of the reasons why we went on the platform, for people to be able to share that insight. But at times we do think it's important that somebody closer to that area than maybe we are has the opportunity to respond, maybe address certain points that have been highlighted. But the kind of short answer to your question is yes. As a team, we respond to everything.
We get asked every now and again to run the comms, to outsource the replies to people. And obviously, we say it's got to be human and real, and you shouldn't. We do it for some people because I love money enough that if you pay us enough, we will do the replies. But we for a short period of time. But it's absolute outsourcing it to someone like us. It's hard enough to be. You end up with a templated formal response which looks robotic and automated. We will literally help someone to create the template for doing it, but it's wrong to outsource to people like us as an agency to do.
Can I ask, so how does that conversation happen? Look, we get too much negative feedback. You have to help us, or we need you to help craft the language, or what's that conversation like?
It's either administration or expertise, I guess. But Glassdoor is a real disruptor. In our sector, it's been a real disruptor. So with any disruptor, there is a certain amount of fear, and what fear generally leads to paralysis, doing nothing.
So they're freaked out and they want your help.
They know we won't get anyone fired with our very boring, response. Say thank you for your feedback. We saw you feel it.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about authenticity. And ensuring that you are telling a true story about your company, and that's a great attraction model. But there's always also a lot of pressure in recruitment, right? You have to hire people in the right amount of time, and it's critical to hiring managers to have people to do the job that needs to happen. So how do you find that balance between telling the right story and doing all the right things on one hand, but also just getting people in the door?
Do you want to do that?
So controversially, we've moved away from time to hire, which may cause wow, why? But I joined Autotrader 3 years ago at a time when we had a real kind of gap for developers, kind of technologists generally to come and join us. And, we absolutely monitored time to hire at that time, but it wasn't reflective of the candidate market they were operating in or the effort that went into hiring these people. And we felt that it might potentially drive the wrong behaviours as well. So as an organisation, we've built teams made up of many different people, different disciplines, mindsets, experience, and what we've wanted to do is bring them together. But the one thing that we needed to do when we brought those people together was kind of give them a guiding light in terms of how they operate, how they approach challenges, and our company values do that. We have 6 company values. And they are a really important part of our assessment process. And what we were very, very clear on in the early days was that, you might be technically fantastic at your role, but actually if you're not the right fit for us and we're not the right fit for you, then there is no point bringing that person into the company. So, we don't believe there are any bad candidates. It's just that we believe that everybody has a home, and it's about finding that right home. And like I say, if we were to find a technical whiz, but actually they really cared about a job title and where they sat in the hierarchy, they wouldn't be for us. And like I say, that the time to hire wasn't reflective of kind of all the things that we do in the candidate process. So yes, we have moved away from that now. It wasn't an overnight thing, but like I say, as the people team, we are custodians of our culture, and if we're kind of diluting that at the very beginning stages of the employee experience, then how do you expect the rest of the business to kind of uphold those values and ways of working?
And we find that a typical campaign is going to have many elements, one of which will be yourselves, and you've got some very quick job hunter, nothing wrong with that, very quick response media, you've got programmatic solutions, you've got an engaged audience like Glassdoor, and you have to use a good media mix. And you mentioned digital analytics people and data scientists people. They're the hardest thing that we have to do. And you'll do events for them. You'll do all sorts of things. And so it's a real mix, because generally you have to work bloody hard to recruit a lot of the people that the people in this room recruit. So it is a mixed policy, really grounded in analytics and data, and that's the right way to do it.
Right. And Monica, is that your feeling too? Is it you're seeing employers?
If I were talking to an employer, I would say, well, I'd ask two things. One, why are you hiring? So if you're in a growth phase, you have to hire people really, really quickly, well, congratulations. But if you're having to hire lots of people because you're losing 20 or 30% of them a year, then maybe you need to connect your hiring strategy with your retention strategy a little bit more deeply and get rid of these metrics that mean nothing. They're not human. These are not widgets. They're not numbers that you're just stacking. They're human beings, and this is presumably a job you want them to have for at least a little while. So maybe get rid of these timelines and actually just focus on connecting a human to your culture. But that's what I'd say.
Yeah. So it's hard to throw KPIs out the window, but I think moving in that direction, certainly. I mean, Jane, you seem to have a very thoughtful strategy. Do you actually have sort of a social recruitment platform strategy that you abide by internally?
So in the early days, we tried to tackle everything. I mean, we tried to do Pinterest, Facebook, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, and we were just overwhelmed with all the different channels that, a candidate could interact on. And, Autotrader, we're quite a lean and non-hierarchical organisation. The people team is incredibly lean as well. And we really took time to understand our candidates and where it is that they hang out, offline and online, digitally, where are developers, where are data scientists. So we decided on a number of social channels, and we decided on, what it is that we were going to do on those channels. And it was always to put our people and their experiences at the heart of that. So Autotrader Life are our social channels that we use. And like I say, we don't only encourage our employees to leave reviews, we also encourage them to, share snapshots of what they're doing during the day. And it's fantastic that we can use the social media feeds on the Glassdoor page. So, when you've got people looking for jobs and, they're on your profile, they can see all of that great stuff as well. So I think it's about understanding your candidates, where they hang out, and the content that you need to serve them with in order to kind of reel them in and kind of, get them reading more. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I'm curious, Dom, from your standpoint, I mean, besides answering Glassdoor reviews on behalf of your clients, having a cohesive strategy, social strategy, is that?
Yeah, but I'm going to echo a couple of the other comments. That classically, the question you get asked is, should we do should we have a careers Twitter or careers Facebook and stuff like that? And you see that they haven't done anything with their Glassdoor page. I say, well, let's tell you what, let's get that done. Let's get LinkedIn done, and then we can, once we've built really successful things on that side. And it's the same on, we used to get asked a lot about social media sentiment analysis. Or words, all those words in slightly different order sometimes. And, again, you've got, your Glassdoor company rating is a bloody good indicator of how popular you are. So start there, get it up from 2.4 to 3.7. And I think that that's where you've got, in Glassdoor, you've got a social media that candidates want to engage with you on or want to learn with you about. So don't create from nothing, start with that. And so I think you're seeing a lot less Facebook activity. Yes, Twitter, if you're into it and if you're doing it well, those things are brilliant to do. But if you haven't got the basics done, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, then start there.
Yeah. Well, I tend to agree. But Monica, I mean, Matt alluded to it earlier when he opened the conversation about recruitment. I mean, it can be a head-spinning world, right? There's so many things. What are you seeing in terms of trends with regard to social recruitment? Is that a thing?
It's definitely a thing. I think my concern with some people are doing it as a box-ticking exercise because they go, oh, no, we do that. We've got that. So I guess what I would advise our clients is if you're going to do it right. If you're going to do it, don't just have it be noise, have it actually be insight. And it's absolutely has to be authentic. You've got to take the feedback and then be able to deal with it. I just see it as a box ticking for a lot of people, which obviously it's not with the two of you, which is good. If it's that, then you're lost. People will see through it.
Yeah. I mean, the overarching goal is obviously to stay competitive in what is now a very tight labor market. So how do you get that competitive edge?
I should talk. The best thing we've used Glassdoor for recently is the proper campaign stuff, when we're geo-targeting, targeting by company, targeting by demographic, and that forming part of overarching strategy. And you think about it, Glassdoor has been a successful media for a long time. Most companies aren't using it to really use the sponsorship, the premium elements of it. So I think there's an absolute easy competitive advantage there, okay? And the analytics that you've seen and the results that you see are getting better and better. So don't think just by doing these things that everyone else is doing it, because they're not, and you can be absolutely ahead of the game by doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, Jane, what do you think in terms of staying competitive against, you're in the tech space, so you probably have one of the harder jobs in terms of filling very hard to find talent right now. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's super competitive. Anyone, like I say, out there is doing the same thing. You'll know how challenging it is. And it's using the channels and the products that we have. So, for example, with Glassdoor, we sponsor all of our jobs, do display advertising. We understand who our competitors are, and we know that we're all talking about very similar things. So we utilise those products. We absolutely believe that it's worth investing in those products. We've seen a result of them. People come through Glassdoor and they are quality hires. But it's all the other things that you do in addition to that, for certain things work for certain groups of individuals. And, we learned quite early on, one size doesn't fit all. So, we think about the different people that visit our Glassdoor page. What content do you serve to data scientists versus the content that you serve to digital account managers? It really does take work, but it does pay off. So yeah, and I think you need to be invested in it. It's not something you can kind of pick up and put down, every, say, 3 to 6 months. It needs to be a constant. But given the support that you receive from the Glassdoor team, it really does kind of help, amplify the messages that we're talking about.
Yeah. And Monica, if there's one thing that you would say, to stay competitive and authentic at the same time, what would that be?
So I'll talk about a few of them, but one of the things that's probably applicable given this conversation is that I think that there needs to be a much stronger link between the people doing the recruiting and the people doing the retaining. It feels like in most businesses, they're very separate. You've got the people that are recruiting, they've got these KPIs, and then you have other parts of the business that are responsible for keeping them there. And you in the tech space, this is Diversity Inclusion Month, so I'll mention what's called, the diversity revolving door. Women are 2.5 times more likely to leave a job in tech, and a person of color 3.5 times more likely. Why is that? You're working so hard to get them there. Why are they leaving? And so there's got to be a better work of knitting together the hard work that's happening with the recruiters and then the hard work of the people that are trying to keep them there. And I think that right now they're just so siloed in my experience.
Interesting. Well, at this point, I'd like to open it up to the audience for questions as well. And I know we have some questions on the live stream. And if you are on the live stream, as a reminder, you can tweet at Glassdoor UK, and we will take your questions. But we'll open it up. Can you wait 1 minute? We're going to get the microphone so everyone can hear you.
Yeah, hi. You can hear me. We had a review on our Glassdoor page from someone who had left, and it came along, and it was very surprisingly unpleasant. And a lot of the things that the person had said were really untrue. It felt that they were lying and deliberately trying to sabotage the reputation, obviously, because they had a bad time, and it's fair enough. But it was very difficult to know how to respond to that. So I think I just said something like, I'm afraid, thank you for your review, but I'm afraid I don't agree with anything you're saying because it's just factually incorrect. But what else are you meant to do?
Well, John might have some ideas, but I think the very fact that you responded to the review shows that you care and shows that you're listening. Try not to be defensive. We always say that. But Dom,
I'll give you a real life example of this. We advise companies, as I've said, okay, and I'm giving you the company advice, which is all what Lauren said. You reply and you stay neutral. I had exactly the same thing. You know, I'm the sort of MD of my company. I think we treat everyone beautifully. Obviously, we're a great company to work for. Someone's wrote a terrible review, you know, and I was almost in tears, but. Those tears turned to anger very quickly, and I sort of started writing this sort of, you know, and I'm the person who advises people, you know. So it was, you know, and unfortunately my wife sort of grabbed my hand away from the sort of laptop, just left it overnight, and then the next morning, you know, it's all you can do is that. That's all you can do. Obviously, if it was libelous, I get these guys would help you there, but I think you get a lot of respect.
They didn't. I asked Glassdoor, can you take it down? And they said no. We can't.
Well, but there's different forms. But I think you get a huge. Like, the users are more sophisticated than we think. They recognise, they can see. We all can see a shitty TripAdvisor review, can't we? We recognise a TripAdvisor review which is not legitimate. But someone, and the same in Glassdoor. If you take your time to respond and consider that, I think you get a lot of respect from the user community that you do that, rather than, you know, the hissy fit that I had when it personally happened to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Should we take a question from the live stream?
Hi, I'm Mark from Glassdoor. We've had lots of engagement on the live stream, so keep it coming. And also via hashtag GD Recruits, so it's good to see. Question is, we've spoken about Glassdoor job seekers staying longer on the site. But in your experience, how are the candidates from Glassdoor actually different to the other job sites you use?
Sorry, was the last part of the question, how do candidates differ?
How are candidates from Glassdoor different to the other job sites you use?
I just think they're so much more informed than other platforms, because, you know, we encourage our colleagues to leave really honest reviews. You know, no workplace is perfect. You know, we don't skip through the office holding hands and making daisy chains. You know, it's just not the reality, is it? And what Glassdoor will do is kind of group together kind of positive and kind of negative kind of reviews, and kind of highlight some of the points that people have raised. And I find it really interesting that sometimes people use what can be perceived to be a negative or a con as a part of their decision-making process when thinking about applying for a company. So I've heard time and time again from developers in particular that, you know, they've used that site and they're working in an organisation that's maybe, you know, quite hierarchical, things don't happen that fast. And one of the things that's kind of highlighted as maybe a perceived con is the speed in which we operate and that pace. And people are like, well, I saw that, and actually that's what I want. You know, so people have a really good understanding of what it's like at Autotrader. And like I say, using that as part of their decision-making criteria really helps deliver to us candidates that are very clear about who we are, because we're not perfect and we're not for everybody, and we're very honest about that. So I think it's having, you know, kind of those reviews out there for candidates to absorb and to decide, because, you know, in the space that we're operating in, you could have a developer that could have 6 or 7 interview requests. If you've only got a couple of days holiday left, you know, then you're going to be going to these sites and having a look at which companies are going to give a great experience, and then what happens once you're actually in the business. So I would say that, you know, Glassdoor candidates are so well informed, and, you know, before they've even kind of arrived, so much of, I guess, the legwork has kind of been taken out of it because of what they've seen on the platform.
And that backs up into the data. If you want we can get better volume of response from other media if you just pure cost per click. But the analytics definitely tell us that the quality of response is higher from Glassdoor, and they're more likely to be recruited.
Great.
I have another question if we have time.
Yes, I think we do.
Okay. Are you finding candidates are mentioning Glassdoor more and more during the interviews? And has that made the process more difficult? So, and how are you dealing with those questions when it's coming up at interview stage?
So the short answer would be yes. Candidates mention it all the time. And we hold a workshop called Brilliant Recruitment for all of our hiring community and anybody involved in the assessment process. And over the course of that day, what we do is we talk about attraction, Glassdoor is obviously a massive part of that. And in the afternoon, we hold a practical session in which we invite our hiring community to participate in an interview role play. And we bring actors in. When I say actors, it's just other members of the people team. And what we do is we stage an interview, and as part of that, candidates will ask questions, and quite a lot of what they will bring up is around Glassdoor. So, for example, if we've had a negative review, candidates can raise that in an interview and ask, well, I've seen this. Is this actually the case at Autotrader? Because what we want hiring managers and the hiring community to do is respond to those reviews and not be defensive and just be like, well, that was somebody's experience and we don't always get it right. So yeah, it's like I say, it's absolutely something that we hear time and time again, and people will bring up things that they see in reviews, but like I say, we're always kind of very open about, yeah, that might have been somebody's experience, and you know that's absolutely fine. We really don't have anything to hide as an organisation.
Is it always the same one or two things? It is with our it tends to be always one of two, maybe maximum three things that they mention.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, you sometimes can get a real humdinger of a review, and you just have to own it. Everybody's kind of had an experience at one time or another. But what we do see as an organisation is kind of around change and the pace in which we work at. And like I say, it's about being very open and honest. It's like we're a tech business. We innovate. We move at speed. We really don't kind of work in that kind of hierarchical fashion. We make decisions collaboratively as an organisation, and things don't happen because of where you sit in the hierarchy, because there isn't a traditional one. So yeah, I think it's incredibly helpful, for candidates to have that information, and for your hiring community to be able to interact when those points are raised.
I have one last question for Sarah Jane at Barclays, if that's okay. Can we get a mic over to her? Thank you.
I'm scared. I thought my bit was over.
No, you're not getting away with it. How do you get senior leadership buy-in in such a large organisation?
For Glassdoor? Oh, gosh. I wish I could photograph some of the faces when I say, have you heard of Glassdoor? And they kind of go, no. And then I tell them about it, and I can see them kind of, again, the half terror, half excitement thing. And so what we do with the exit reports that I mentioned before, every quarter we put them together. We can put them together monthly, but we do it quarterly. So as well as all of the exit data on there, we put all of the Glassdoor data in there. So all of our senior leaders see the Glassdoor data in the reports that come to them. So again, it helps to shape our people strategies. And I mentioned earlier that recruitment handle the exit surveys. And to your point, I think that is really important because it's how we attract people, but the retention piece and connecting those really help to outline our attraction strategies as well. So yeah, we show them the reports, we make them look at it. Hopefully that answers.
Okay. Well, feedback is a gift. And actually, a lot of people don't realize that we also have feedback on interviews and the interview experience. So going back to sort of time to hire, that is also a way to glean really good insight on kind of what's happening on the front lines of recruiting. And Jane, I'm curious, we've talked about this kind of before the panel a little bit, but how you use those interview reviews as well.
So they're becoming more and more important, and as I mentioned, we're competing in that incredibly competitive space. So, more often than not, that the candidates that we're speaking to will have numerous other interview requests from other organisations, and we don't just do it for this. But it's obviously great if we do get an interview kind of review that was positive. But we put a lot into our assessment process, and we think it's important that candidates have a great experience. That they receive timely feedback, and they are very aware of what it is that we're looking to do, because we do have quite a thorough assessment process. We do everything over the course of one day on the whole and do a number of different sessions. And it's important for candidates to understand what's involved. We are trying to find people that will align to our way of working. So having that information out there is incredibly important. And like I say, for candidates to see that, and if they're having to kind of make a decision as to which interviews they go to, because they can't go to all of them, obviously going to Glassdoor and seeing that previous candidates have had a positive experience and received timely feedback and outcomes is incredibly important. So as a resourcing team, We're doing more work in this space. Our resourcing partners meet with new starters a couple of weeks after they've joined. They're finding out how they've got on and, you know, asking them to leave a review for, you know, what could be a future colleague. So yeah, it's like I say, it's something that we are beginning to focus on now because we understand just how much in demand our candidates are and how little time they have. Great.
Well, I'm afraid we are now out of time, but I'd like to thank our expert panelists, and it's been very insightful. Hopefully, everyone got a lot out of the panel today, and I'm going to leave Monica Parker actually on stage, who's going to dig in a little bit into the psychological drivers and engaging with candidates. So, thank you.
Thank you guys very much. I'm conscious that I am standing between those of you in the room between now and drinks, so you're probably eager. Those of you on the live stream, you can start drinking now. So that's good. That's good. It might make the presentation more enjoyable. Thank you guys very much for having me. My name is Monica Parker. I'm founder of a company called Hatch. And Hatch is a human analytics and change consultancy, and we specialize in the future of work. The term Hatch is actually an acronym. It stands for Human Analytics Think Connect Hatch, but it also comes from this quote, which for all of the hatchlings that we deliver the work, this is sort of our mantra. And it says, you cannot go on indefinitely being an ordinary, decent egg. We must be hatched or go bad. And I think this is a real clarion call for change in the way that things are changing in the world today. So I came at my job by a bit of a dog-legged process, we'll say. So I studied design in undergrad in America. I went on to get my graduate degree in organizational behavior up in Queens, in Belfast. And in between, I was a homicide investigator for the Department of Justice. And I worked with men and women on Florida's death row trying to exonerate them. I was a defense investigator. And what I learned during that time was a few things. One, space matters. The space that we occupy has an impact on our mental health, on our behavior. The communities that we surround ourselves with have an impact. And really, I started to learn that there is this intense intersection between the things that we surround ourselves and our eventual behavior. And so that is what drove me to become something of a behavior nerd. I'm quite a behavior nerd, and we tend to hire, true to that form, lots of other behavior nerds. So I feel like it's important because we're talking about the people piece to remember the other elements. When we talk about work or workplace or working at Hatch, we really talk about the three spheres of work. And so we tend to think of work as the place we go, right, if we're not flexible working. And I'll tell you, you and I were having a mind meld because I'll talk about that in a minute. The physical workplace. You've got the technological workplace. Everybody, regardless of whether they want to be or not today, is a technology company. We can't exist without it. But then, of course, it's the people, and that's why we're all here, right? The people element, if it were that bubble, it would be 3 times as big if it were up to me. But the challenge is we have to keep remembering that they are, in fact, human. They are not widgets. They are not numbers. They are not KPIs. We are hiring humans. And that's what drives work and working. So I want to talk about what I see as 3 disruptors that are really driving the changes in work and the future of work. Now, the term disruptor is far overused. I will accept that. But it was actually coined by a guy named Clayton Christensen in 1997, so more than 20 years ago. And what he said, the definition of a disruptor was the thing that changes everything that went before. So basically, it undoes all previous assumptions. And I think when we start looking at recruiting and hiring, there's no question that these 3 elements are fundamentally changing the future and actually have changed now. So the first is automation. I frequently get asked in my work, are robots going to take my job? Yes, they probably will, but you won't believe me. That's okay. So this is a piece of work done by Pew in America. They ask people, are robots going to take your job? 2/3 of Americans expect that, yes, they will, but it won't take my job, right?
because it's not going to affect us. And that's a typical bias that we say, oh, well, no, it doesn't really affect me. But the point is actually it's going to affect everybody in some way. 70% of young people in the OECD will enter the labor market today in a job lost to automation. Now, you're saying, okay, well, maybe those are lower rung jobs, or those are jobs we've already identified we're going to lose to automation. But PwC did a study, and they found that 1/3 of even their highest level of financial jobs are going to be dramatically affected by automation. And so the reason I feel I have to put this up here is, how do we recruit for jobs that maybe we're starting a recruitment strategy that in 3 or 5 years are going to look fundamentally different? I'll tell you my opinion on how to deal with all of these disruptors in just a minute. The next is globalization. Globalization, unfortunately, has become a bit of a dirty word. There's no question that the current president in America is a backlash to globalization. Some would say that Brexit is a backlash to globalization. But I see globalization as a potentially really positive thing. I love this picture. This is the first zinnia grown in space, and this is a picture taken from the space station of this zinnia. And I think it's such a beautiful example of what globalization can do, right? It's a global team coming from all over the world to create this opportunity. And it's such a beautiful sort of image with the curve of the earth behind it. But why I think this is very interesting is that basically the guy that grew this, the astronaut, there was no lesson on how to grow in space. And so he's going back and forth to NASA, and they're sending him different booklets on how to grow in space. And when he came back, he was like, oh, I think I might be the first astronaut gardener. And that sort of popped into my head because I was like, that's a cool job. I want to be an astronaut gardener. But this is the thing, 65% of kindergarten children will work in jobs that haven't even been invented yet. I mean, that's amazing, the pace of change. And to me, that's really exciting. But of course, as someone in recruiting, you start rocking back and forth because you're like, oh my God, how do I write all these job descriptions? Can someone give me a job description for an astronaut gardener? I mean, it is very challenging, but it's also an incredibly exciting time to be in the industry. And then the next is portfolio work. There's no question that we've got slashies, right? We've got people that are doing gig this and gig that. It seems like everybody's got some side gig. But I think it's beyond just portfolio work. It's a portfolio world. Like, everything is on demand now. You can get space as a service. So the hatchlings are WeWorkers. We're in WeWork. You can get software as a service. You can get a dog as a service. You can rent someone's dog for the weekend. I mean, everything is available as a service. Well, that means that people are going to start expecting a much different sort of relationship to their employer. They may not want the traditional, well, here's your job, you work all week, we send you a paycheck. They're going to expect different types of relationships. Now, this is a statistic that absolutely blows my mind. So how long have you been with Barclays, you said? 9 years. Anybody in here been with their company for over 10 years? So we do a lot of work with insurance companies. There are people 30 years, 40 years. You get less for murder for that. This is changing. It's changing forever. A child today will have 16 jobs in 5 industries. 16 jobs in 5 industries. They're not even going into an industry anymore. They're going to be changing constantly. Now, some of those changes are going to be by choice. Some of them won't be because of the constant changing face of work, right? They'll be automated, or the role will just fundamentally change. But this is something that I think is really the key that could be the future of both recruiting, hiring, education. There's an organization called the Foundation for Young Australians. I highly encourage you, write that down if you want, Foundation for Young Australians. They do incredible research looking at the youth of Australia and what their future will look like. And they do global research, and we have a partnership with them. And they've come up with this approach saying that instead of training people or educating people to be a lawyer or to be a computer scientist, we need to start looking at job clusters, at skills clusters, and basically training people to be in a particular cluster. And my belief is that this is the future of recruitment as well. That rather than having a traditional job description, we're going to hire someone based on a cluster. Why? Because you may hire someone for a job, and then in 18 months, that job is fundamentally changed. What do you do? What do you do with this person? You let them go? No, if you've hired them for a cluster, there will always be another opportunity for them. You can hold on to them. That's where recruitment and retention can start to link together. And so I think this is an opportunity to really fundamentally change how we see roles, how we see education, how we see hiring and retaining. So these are some statistics that I'm sure you've seen before. Everybody's seen the Gallup stuff, right? But the second one always sort of strikes me still, that you've got 82% of workers not engaged. Those are people who say they were sleepwalking through their day. But that second one, 18% active saboteurs to their coworkers' success. Active terrorists. I'll tell you one of the quickest ways to get a terrorist. You hire them, you give them this great story about what their job's going to be about, you give them this story about the culture, you tell them they're going to have flexible working, and then they come in and they're like, wait, this wasn't the office I was interviewed in. Where's that nice office that was down in Canary Wharf? Oh, wait, you told me I was going to be able to work flexibly, but oh, that's just for managers? The quickest way to get a terrorist in your organization is to do a bait and switch, to tell people, look at this shiny bauble of a business. And then when they get there, it's something completely different. Just be honest, and people will self-select. And if your job, if your way of working, if your culture is just that crappy, well then work on that. Don't work on selling people to try to get them in the business when they shouldn't be there. So 2 of the 3 reasons people leave their job are culture and motivation. So what is it that you're doing to align culture and motivation when you're hiring them? I'm going to guess, if I ask this question, how many of you hire for a cultural fit? Yeah, come on, most of you are like, yeah, that's what we do. When I go into the businesses that we work with and we do interviews and we ask people, tell me what your culture is, how often do you think we get the same answer? Do you even really know what your culture is when you're saying we're hiring for a cultural fit? Number 1, figure it out, codify it, be proud of it, announce it, scream it from the rooftops, because if you're not, then you can't hire for a cultural fit. You're hiring for what you believe or what you've been told from the recruiting team. It's got to be authentic, and you have to really own it. So what I see is this gap, this big gap between where we are in recruiting and retaining and what the future will be. And so I'm going to give you what I see as the four C's. It's easy to remember that way. Elements that people are looking for when they're coming in to your company, and then also a couple that I think is what you should be hiring for. So community, control, curiosity, and cause. So the first is community. We know community is important, but how important? There's been a lot of talk about sitting being the new smoking. I imagine you guys have heard that before, right? Well, there's actually been studies that say that loneliness is the new smoking. Loneliness has the same physiological impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. People who report they're lonely are 30% more likely to have heart disease or diabetes. And yet 1/3 of the UK, of all of the UK, lives alone right now, 1/3 of them. And by 2030, they think it'll be almost 50%. So think about this. You live alone. You get in the tube to go to work. We don't make eye contact because Brits don't make eye contact in the tube. And then we go to work and we email the person sitting next to us, right? We've all done it. We know, we've all done it. The challenge is that we have to pierce that veil. We have to create a tribal sense of community because that is what keeps people. So if you have that sense, people will feel it. They'll feel that sense of community and will definitely read on Glassdoor reviews if you have that, because people will be compelled to share with you their sense of community. So this is some Hatch data that we have. 89% say relationships with their colleagues are primary contributors to their sense of engagement in the workplace. So Hatch do a survey, we've got about 40,000 respondents globally at this point, and so this matters. You don't trust Hatch? Listen to Gallup. What does Gallup say? Gallup says one of the single biggest indicators if someone will stay in a job for a year, the next year, a best work friend. So think about that also when you're recruiting and when you're losing people. If you're hemorrhaging people, those aren't just numbers you have to backfill. That's somebody's best work friend. And that means that that person is also at risk. So think about how they're going to start integrating into that community. You have to really know what that is so that when you have someone else come in, they go, yeah, I could be friends with that person too, because it matters. It matters, especially when we're as lonely as we are. We're looking for that connection at our workplace. The next is control. And this is where you and I were having the mind meld, because I'll tell you what, control, it's about giving up control. It's about autonomy. And I hate to tell you that if you are recruiting right now for a company that doesn't offer flexible working, you should start looking for another job, because it's going to be really freaking hard. It is the single biggest non-remuneration benefit in the OECD. People expect it, and they're going to start demanding it. It's just going to be baseline. So if you're not there yet, you can call Hatch and we can help you. But if you're not there yet, honestly, you need to get there, because it's really, really important for people to feel a sense of control over their day-to-day lives. And when people say, I'm so busy, I just can't manage it, our research shows that time paucity, the sense of being time poor, is actually heavily linked to autonomy. If people can just control their time, they actually start to feel like they have more of it without any workload change. It's a miracle. But if people go, well, we can't let them do that because we've got the bottom line to worry about. This is a study done by Cornell University, and what they found, they basically took two teams that were identical, and they gave one team a command and control structure. Everything was command and control, driven, mother may I, all of it. And then the other team was given complete autonomy. They could self-form, they decided what their goals were. They performed by 4 times better than the command and control team. 4 times better. Humans respond to autonomy. That's what we want. That's what drives us. So if you're not able to offer that to a candidate, you're going to be really, really challenged to recruit and retain the best. The next is cause, and I love, love, love this picture. So is anybody familiar with the art of the brick? Did anybody see it when it was here? Oh, it's so cool. So you may not know the story of the Lego brick artist. So this is an American guy. His name is Nathan Sawaya, and he was actually a lawyer. So he went about his day-to-day life lawyering, and he would go home at night and on weekends, and he would build Lego brick art. And he was just obsessed with it. He couldn't stop thinking about it. Finally, one day he said, I can't be a lawyer anymore. I've got to be a Lego brick artist. And I would love to be a fly on the wall with that conversation with his mom. Mom, Dad, I know you put me through law school and all of that, but the bar, but I want to be a Lego brick artist. But this is the thing. If you were to put on the surface, well, Lego brick artist or lawyer, you'd say, well, a lawyer obviously has a bigger cause. That's a more cause-driven role. But not for Nathan Sawaya, and maybe not for your staff either. You know, as you're recruiting these people, try to tap into what their cause drives them. What is it? Why do they want to belong to that? I hope it's not just a paycheck, because that won't keep them around for long. What is it that cause can be? And maybe it's not actually even a cause that you can offer them in that role, but perhaps you can find what it is that lights their fire about that cause and figure out a way to link that into the work that you're doing. You know, some people, their cause is just to make the best gosh darn cup of coffee as a barista. And if that's it, great. But tap into it and don't make assumptions about what is more cause-driven than the next. So now those are the things that they're looking for from you, but this is something that I think that you should be looking for from your candidates. So this is a word that I'm guessing most of you have not seen. It's Meraki. It is a Greek word, and it doesn't really have a direct English translation, but the closest that it comes is 1 part purpose, 1 part passion with a sprinkling of grit. That's what you should be hiring for. If I could put nothing else on a hiring descriptor, that's what I want. I want 1,000 people with Meraki. What their skills are, you can train that. You can't train this. And if you can find people who have this, you better hold on to them, because that is what creates culture. That's what drives businesses. Meraki, passion, purpose, and grit. And then the last is curiosity. I'm one of these believers that every emotion can be distilled down to one of 2 things, love or fear, right? So love is all the happy stuff, and fear is all the yucky bits. And so I find that a lot of people, when they're afraid to deal with things, they stop being curious. But curious is one of the most powerful elements that we can have, and you definitely want to hire for curiosity. Now, I know a lot of people say that, right? But I want to give you the social science behind that, actually the neuroscience behind that. So curiosity does this amazing thing. When people are curious about something, it triggers the area of dopamine in our brains. So dopamine is, is like a drug. It's a happiness drug in our brains. So the dopamine is released because we're excited and we want to know, but then this is the cool bit. When we get to the answer of whatever it is we're curious about, that triggers the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is what embeds things into long-term memory. So if you've got people that you're hiring, their jobs are going to be changing constantly because we all have to be nimble, you better get people who are super curious because that means they learn faster. They learn faster because when they're curious and they learn the answer, it sticks in their brain better. So there's a scientific reason you want to hire for curiosity, and it's going to be one of the most powerful ways that you can keep people nimble in an organization and also excited to be there. So I will finish. I love quotes because so many people say things better than myself. Do not hire a man who does your work for money, but him who does it for love. So thank you guys very much, and now we drink.
Thank you very much, Monica. Some absolutely fascinating insights there. That's the end of the content for today. I'd like to say a big thank you to all of the brilliant speakers. If you have any burning Glassdoor questions, head over to the demo zone where the highly knowledgeable and motivated Glassdoor reps will be able to help you. As you can see in here, refreshments are being poured at the back. So please stay around, network with each other, your opportunity to talk to the speakers. I'll be coming around to check that everyone's telling each other emotionally engaging, authentic stories. Thank you to everyone on the live stream, and thank you very much to Glassdoor for putting on the event. Thank you.